This is the Football Show. We're on a Euro 2024 countdown here at Sky Sports News. 93 days now until Scotland kick off the tournament against Germany. 95 days until England get their tournament underway against Serbia. Now, tomorrow afternoon, Gareth Southgate picks his squad for the final internationals before the summer. So we're going to take a look at some of his selection dilemmas. James, let's start with you. Let's start in goal. A lot of uncertainty as to who fills the two spots alongside Jordan Pickford.
Yeah, there is, in particular, that third spot, because Sam Johnstone, he's won back the starting jersey at Crystal Palace ahead of Dean Henderson, and he looks set to continue his role as England's number two. Aaron Ramsdale and Henderson, they've suffered from a real lack of minutes this season, and that could open the door for Jack Butland. Really impressive season for Rangers, and Gareth Southgate confirmed last month Butland is back on the radar. He's not been called up since June 2019, but his form has been undeniable. 23 clean sheets, save percentage of 75%, much higher than his rivals, plus no errors leading to goals. You've also got James Trafford here, ever present in what has been a really struggling Burnley side, but he offers an alternative option if Southgate is looking to give the youngsters some senior tournament experience. So plenty of decent goalkeeping options there. It does look like a fight just for one spot, though.
Yeah. And why not Butland? I can remember the days when the spine of an English team came out of Rangers, it seemed to be. But then you got Trafford, and the kind of feeling is, why not, if you're going to bring a keeper who's most likely not going to play, why not bring one for the future and give them that experience going forward?
I think it's a difficult one, isn't it? I think James Trafford is so young that he will probably get a chance for his experience at a time when he's playing better and he's playing for a team that aren't struggling so much. I think it's only right to recognise Jack Butland. I mean, he has been in squads for big tournaments before as well. He went to Euro 2012, he went to the World Cup in 2018, although he didn't feature in either tournament. So he has been around England camps, and the fact that he's been picked for multiple tournaments suggests that he's a reasonably good tourist as well. And I think his form for Rangers probably deserves, respect. He's got the best save percentage in the whole of the Scottish League. Rangers are flying. Up until recently, they hadn't lost a game in a number of games, up until that Motherwell result, and Philippe Clement's done an excellent job there, and Jack Butland's been central to that. So I'd like to see him rewarded. It feels like sometimes we're too Premier League-centric with some of our England selections.
Yeah, I think Jack Butland's has got a very strong case, hasn't he? I mean, I think the problem for Aaron Ramsdale, of course, is the lack of minutes, and I think Sam Johnstone's in a great position now. You're probably looking at the options now thinking he's the number two. I think it's telling that he started in that friendly against Australia in October, even when Ramsdale was available and in the squad for that game. So, yeah, I think there is an opening for the third spot. I mean, the reality is you're very unlikely to play, aren't you, in that role at a major tournament, but you don't really want to be relying on someone who hasn't played in 6 months, potentially. Ramsdale could potentially be going into summer having only started 2 games since the turn of the year. So, yeah, Jack Butland has a great chance. He started all but one of Rangers' games in all competition. He's looked very, very sharp. So he's got to have a good claim to get that place.
Yeah, so those are the other options. Obviously, Jordan Pickford not on there because he's kind of going, isn't he? The real issues, I suppose, come in defence. Fair to say John Stone's a shoo-in. Let's keep fingers crossed that he stays fit. However, there are injuries. Mark Gay, Harry Maguire being a doubt. So, chance for others to really stake a claim and shine here, is there, James?
There is, and it means Gareth Southgate will have to put out a makeshift defence in these upcoming friendlies. So there will be a chance for players to stake their claim. Now, based on previous squads, we would expect Fikayo Tomori to be named tomorrow. He's just returned following a hamstring injury. Ezri Konsa likely to be included, considering the season he's had so far for Aston Villa. He received his first call-up earlier on this season. Now, Lewis Dunk, he'll hope to benefit from injuries in the centre-back area, but Brighton haven't been watertight this season, have they? Just 6 clean sheets in all competitions, and look at that here, 4 errors leading to goals. A lot of excitement, a lot of noise around Jared Branthwaite at the moment. He's excelled this season for an Everton side battling for survival. The youngest option here, just 21. Finally, Eric Dyer. We know he's performed for England in the past, ending their penalty shootout hoodoo in 2018, but he's got a good chance of being involved tomorrow following his move to Bayern Munich. Now, that would be some turnaround for a player completely out of favour at Tottenham earlier on this season.
OK, so I'm just processing all James has told us. So, OK, what jumps out at you there?
I think different to the goalkeepers, there's the potential that one of these names could start, really. With Maguire's injury issues, with Mark Guehi's injury issues, we don't have that much depth at centre-back. Jordan Pickford has been so assured for England. It's been a slightly different matter at centre-back. I think the player who's been in the best form out of those players is Jared Branthwaite, but then he has played for a team that has struggled in Everton. They faced a lot of pressure. He has excelled. It would be a slightly different job that he played at England. I think the fact that Maguire often plays on the left-hand side for England and did for United before Ten Hag switched him to the other side, and Jared Branthwaite being left-footed, that does potentially play in his favour. Ezri Konsa has probably had the best season out of the rest of them. I think Fikayo Tomori has had a number of injury issues at AC Milan, and Lewis Dunk has had, a slightly strange season by his standards. A number of errors leading to goals, as James points out. Particularly struggled in some of the Europa League ties early on for Brighton. There was that performance away in Marseille, which wasn't particularly impressive. So I feel like Jared Branthwaite, on the basis of form and his injury record, probably deserves a call-up alongside Ezri Konsa.
It's dire for England. Or is it? That's an interesting name on there.
Very interesting, yeah. I was surprised to see him make the cut, actually, given what we saw from him earlier in the season. But as James says, he's someone who has performed for England in the past. He's someone who Southgate likes, but I'd be surprised if he's in. I like Doogie. Branthwaite is the name that jumps out to me. I think Doogie mentioned Everton have obviously had a difficult season, but defensively they've been pretty good, haven't they? Only 39 goals conceded, one of the best defensive records in the league, and Branthwaite's been a big part of that. Excellent defensively, but also very calm, very composed on the ball. I'm sure Southgate is looking at that and thinking he would potentially fit into his way of playing. There have been a couple of instances recently where he's almost dribbled away from attacking attackers inside the box, playing for Everton. So I think he's got that confidence and that composure. He's got that consistency as well. He's played the entire season without any injury interruptions, which is more than can be said for some of the options we're looking at. So I think Branthwaite is someone who's definitely worth a look in these friendlies and potentially at the tournament as well.
Yeah, Levi Colwell's another interesting option because he can play as centre-half and full-back as well, but he's picked up an injury at the moment. And it seems not long ago where we were talking about 74 full-backs trying to get into the England squad. That's an exaggeration. Not quite the same now, especially at right-back. But overall, Luke Shaw, Ben Chilwell, Reece James, Kieran Trippier, Trent Alexander-Arnold, all injured. Kyle Walker's going to get in there, so who else?
Yeah, well, defence really is that area where Southgate will be scratching his head when he looks at the options he's got. It's really hard to argue against Joe Gomez, considering what he's offered this season for Liverpool. Won the last of his 11 international caps back in 2020, but he's become hugely important to Liverpool this season. Right back, centre back, left back, also playing in midfield to help cover the club's injury crisis. Ben White continues to show his class at right back for Arsenal, assists and goals, yet to receive a recall after leaving the World Cup in Qatar due to personal reasons. But form alone, he should be in that squad. Now, in terms of the young options here, we've got Tino Livramento. He's got a decent chance of being included. Played on both flanks this season, really excelling, having spent a year on the sidelines with injury prior to this season. And Rico Lewis may benefit from England's injury problems in the fullback area. Made his England debut in November, but it's worth noting 21 appearances there. He's not featured in the Premier League since January. So it does feel like defence is the real area of concern for Gareth Southgate. He's not going to have his best options available for him in what is England's last international camp before the summer.
Yeah, the big tick for Livramento was, despite the defeat, I guess, on Monday, he had a very good game at Stamford Bridge, and Gareth Southgate was watching on at that moment, so he caught his eye. The really interesting one there is Ben White, is it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he's having a brilliant season, isn't he? And you have to remember how much he is doing and how much he's bringing to that role he's playing for Arsenal. I went down to London Colney to interview him in October, and he talked about the complexity of the role he's playing under Arteta. He said a fullback under Arteta needs to be a fullback, but also a centre-back, a winger, a number 10, such are the demands that he places on you. And he's doing all of that. He's stepping into midfield, he's going on the outside, he's producing in the final third, he's excelling defensively as well. Of course, he's a centre-back, so he can drop into that back line as a centre-back if needed. So he ticks so many boxes. He's got the versatility. I guess the question is compatibility with Southgate and the current staff. Is there work to be done there to reopen the door to him? We'll see about that. The other thing for Southgate to consider, of course, is the fact that he does have good options at right-back already with Trippier, with Trent Alexander-Arnold, with Kyle Walker. So it's an interesting one. I think on in terms of performances this season, he merits a place in the squad, Ben White. But whether he gets the call up is another question.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with Ben White. I mean, of the other names that were on the board there, I think Joe Gomez definitely deserves to play. I think Liverpool have only conceded 2 more goals than Arsenal this year. And I think with the injuries they've had at the back, Joe Gomez has had to feature at left back, at right back, and at centre back. And I think he's only appeared in a Premier League season more often in the 1920 season when Liverpool won the league. Other name to mention, potentially Rico Lewis. I know he hasn't featured a lot in the Premier League, but he's actually been really crucial to City in the Champions League. He's featured in 7 of their 8 Champions League games. He started 6. He's provided 3 assists in that time. Only Harry Kane and Bellingham have provided more in the entire competition. So it feels like Pep Guardiola really trusts Rico Lewis in those big moments. I think that's partly down to the fact that John Stones has had his injury issues, and Rico Lewis can do that right-back central midfield hybrid role. But he does feel like one for the future. So I wonder whether, with all these injuries amongst our fullbacks, Rico Lewis will get another call-up.
Right, let's talk about the midfield. We're talking about the goalkeepers, let's talk about the defence, let's get to the midfield. And a lot of people, fingers crossed, or supporting Kobbie Mainoo to be included tomorrow. What do the stats say and what options has he got in midfield?
Well, this is an area which is really interesting because Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham are dead certs to start, you'd think. There's debate about who else could feature in the centre of the park. Now, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, he's impressed at AC Milan since making the move to Italy in the summer. 8 goals this season in all competitions. As has fellow former Chelsea midfielder Ross Barkley, really reignited his career under Rob Edwards at Luton, laid on 5 assists already this season. Now, you mentioned Kobbie Mainoo. He's quickly become one of the first names on Erik ten Hag's team sheet. Perhaps he could be the perfect foil for Bellingham and Rice, who really is excelling at the moment in advanced areas. The reason why these 3 have become options is because of the lack of meaningful player minutes from these 2. 2 of Southgate's favourites in Calvin Phillips and Jordan Henderson. Now, Phillips moved to West Ham in January for playing time. Things haven't really worked out so far on the pitch. Replaced at half-time against Burnley at the weekend. A number of errors so far and a red card already in his time in East London. Now, Henderson, he's featured 7 times for Ajax so far, so we've not included the appearances in the Saudi Pro League here. He'll hope that the move to the Dutch Giants will be enough to keep him in the England picture. So will Southgate stick to those he's been loyal to in recent seasons despite their lack of minutes, or perhaps will we look for one of these left field choices?
Yeah. OK, where does he go? The exuberance of youth or the tried and tested?
I think the exuberance of youth. I mean, I think we are talking about maybe the 5th or 6th midfield slot, because I think if Trent Alexander-Arnold is fit, he'll be picked as a midfielder. I think Conor Gallagher's got a good chance of going ahead of all the names mentioned as well. But I think he probably needs, with Jude Bellingham being such an amazing attacking force this season, he probably needs that more defensive-minded midfielder. I think in a dream world, it probably would be Calvin Phillips. You know, he's been England Player of the Year beforehand, excelled at Euro 2020, but his form for West Ham, his lack of minutes at Man City before that, probably doesn't warrant selection right now. So I go with Kobbie Mainoo, who's got the more defensive-minded presence out of Loftus-Cheek and Barkley, and I think his performances so far this season suggest he's not just one for the future. He could be used off the bench in the tournament. OK, we've got to crack on because we've got to get to the forwards here. I think Harry Kane's going. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, I think Harry Kane's already booked his seat in first class for that flight to Germany. Well, he's already there, isn't he? But there's one man who's gone above and beyond to stake his claim to be the number 2 or potentially start alongside Kane. Ollie Watkins, 21 goals, 10 assists in all competitions this season. You have to assume that he's safe and he's got a spot on the plane. And then 2 other out-and-out strikers here, Dominic Solanke and Ivan Toney. Solanke enjoying his best Premier League goal-scoring campaign of his career. Hugely impressive at Bournemouth this season, 16 goals in all competitions. On the other hand, Ivan Toney missed a huge portion of this season due to suspension. He has scored 4 times since making his return in January. There's a feeling, despite his lack of minutes, Toney is ahead of Solanke in the pecking order. The England manager spoke in glowing terms about Toney last year following his betting ban and said that would not impact on a possible call-up this summer.
Yeah, we will find out at 2 o'clock tomorrow, but where do you go?
Well, I think it's going to be one of those options. I don't think there's room for more than one. I think Ollie Watkins is ahead at the moment and Rashford will probably be the other supplementary striker. He's been inconsistent for Manchester United this season, of course, but if you look at his England record, I mean, fantastic at the World Cup from the bench, wasn't he? And also scored in the 3-1 win over Italy, which clinched the place at the Euros. So Rashford, reliable at international level, he can be another striking option. And Watkins, I think, is probably ahead of the other 2 options at the moment.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think Dom Solanke's probably shown enough consistency to be that third choice, but Watkins.
OK, there we go. We got there in the end. You'll find out tomorrow at 2. Stay with us on the football show, though. Plenty more to come next.